you think?
I believe Puffy may have engaged in some activity.
Right. They say the inmates, they fight each other over the right to make his bed in the morning.
Anybody doing that is participating in the activity.
Diddy is now being accused of obstructing justice.
Diddy running the jail, man. He running the spot. I think people thought Diddy was done when he got to jail. Like, okay, you're finally a regular person. And they're realizing, you know, Diddy didn't work all them years to get billions just to get locked up, and those billions can't help.
Diddy has been exposed for hosting mini freak-offs while in prison. Yap, you heard me correctly. Rumor has it that being locked up hasn't stopped Diddy from going back to his disgusting ways. And get this, apparently he is so popular in prison now that he even has groupies fighting over who is going to make his bed. Y'all, this story is crazy, so let's get straight into it.
And, you know, remember, we're all thinking that Diddy's like in super isolation, doesn't talk to no inmates. We later find out via even court filings by the government, he does. And this one inmate looked like he's not wrong because he says, hey, listen, Diddy's such a big player in the game in terms of, you know, his power, and he's that guy even in jail.
Now, everyone assumed that Diddy getting locked up was going to be the end of him. People assumed he would finally get to pay for all the wrong he has done to dozens of people. However, it seems we were all wrong. If anything, it seems Diddy is thriving. Thriving is even an understatement. Rumor has it that Diddy is quite enjoying his life behind bars. You see, Diddy is locked up in the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This place is as bad as prison can get. The worst of the worst get put in here. We are talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, and Jeff Epstein. The list goes on and on. Now, all of those have mentioned were reported to have hated MDC. They likened it to a literal hell on earth, but not Diddy. Reports from the detention facility indicate that the dude is quite enjoying his time there. Now, don't get me wrong, the prison is far from the luxury-filled lifestyle that Diddy was used to. I mean, there have been frequent reports of severe staff shortages at the prison, frequent inmate fights breaking out, and generally dreadful conditions. I mean, it's a prison after all, but it seems Diddy has slowly been turning the so-called hell on earth into his little paradise. Y'all, reports suggest that Diddy's celebrity status carried into prison and he is getting treated like a king in there. Diddy has become so popular that he now has groupies in prison that literally fight over the privilege of making his bed when he gets up in the morning. Y'all, this has led Diddy to gain an upbeat and positive attitude while he is awaiting his day in court. Apparently, Diddy goes around smiling and encouraging inmates, asking them to smile more often. However, at the end of the day, Diddy is still Diddy. And it was reported that he threw a huge tantrum when Luigi Mangione, the dude accused of unaliving United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, was brought to the prison. Apparently, Diddy felt that Mangione was getting more attention than him. Now, not only that, according to Whack 100, he believes Diddy has been having intimate meetings with his groupies while he is in prison. I mean, just because he is locked up doesn't mean he is changing his ways. Now, Diddy's influence goes way beyond the confines of his cell. According to reports coming from prison late last year, Diddy was still threatening his victims from prison. You see, in a recent shocking turn of events, it was revealed that Diddy had been trying to reach out to his victims and witnesses in his cases to try and influence them in his favor. Not only that, it was alleged that Diddy was also trying to influence his jury pool so he could get a favorable jury for his cases. Now, all of these were discovered after investigators reviewed phone calls that Diddy was making from prison. Now, many, if not all people, believe that Diddy wouldn't be able to do much to affect his case from prison, but Diddy is proving everybody wrong. Apparently, while in prison, Diddy was aware that his phone calls would get monitored so that the police would get more incriminating evidence on him. So Diddy paid at least 8 inmates, probably his groupies, through intermediaries so that he could use their allocated phone calls to avoid getting detected. Y'all, Diddy didn't stop there. CNN also reported that Diddy used 3-way calls in order to contact various people not on his approved calling list, meaning that Diddy would call someone on his approved list, then that person would make a conference call to another person whom Diddy wanted to talk. Not only that, Diddy also used a non-authorized third-party messaging system to send hundreds of texts to a bunch of people so that the police couldn't monitor what he was communicating. Now, all this came to light in a recent hiring where Diddy was attempting for a third time to get bail, but federal prosecutors are now arguing that Diddy shouldn't be allowed bail because if he gets released, he would definitely prove a danger to anyone involved in the cases against him.
You know, the filing that came out on Friday or Thursday by the government, which is a response to Diddy's new motion for bail, essentially said Diddy is using like 8 other inmates like personal access codes to call everybody he wants.
Exactly.
It's like, add this person to the call, add this person. Yo, like he's running the jail. So these inmates, I completely believe, and by the way, this is how the government paints it.
Anyways, During his numerous unauthorized calls and texts, the prosecutors say that Diddy tried to get into contact with potential witnesses in his cases and even his victims. Apparently, Diddy's end goal was to blackmail them into keeping them quiet, and if that didn't work, he would try and influence them into providing testimony that helped his cases. The prosecutors wrote to the judge saying, "Since the defendant, Diddy, has been detained at MDC, he has continued to try to evade law enforcement monitoring, corruptly influence witness testimony, and further attack the integrity of these proceedings. While attempting to evade law enforcement monitoring, the defendant has, among other things, orchestrated social media campaigns that are, in his own words, aimed at tainting the jury pool, made efforts to publicly leak materials he views as helpful to his case, and contacted witnesses through third parties." Now, this shocking news comes just days after a judge denied Diddy's request to silence any potential witnesses in his cases. Diddy tried to file for a gag order in order to prevent anyone who testified in his case from talking publicly about it. The judge denied Diddy's request, arguing that Diddy's concerns did not outweigh an accuser's right to free speech. He further added, saying, "Not all alleged victims will be participants in this case, and a blanket restriction on their speech will silence individuals who may never have anything to do with the proceedings here. And in any event, less restrictive alternatives must be considered and rejected before imposing a restraint on speech."
Accusations within the prosecution's motion to deny bail are very serious and will be considered very heavily by the judge, because the judge is going to want to ensure that he is not influencing witnesses and or contacting anyone to influence a trial in any way.
Now, Diddy and his lawyers didn't love how investigators came across his prison schemes. According to Diddy's lawyers, the investigators didn't use due process, and they wanted the investigators to explain how they got these letters, which reportedly contained information bound by attorney-client privilege. In a letter to Judge Aaron, Diddy's lawyers demanded that an emergency hearing be set so that the investigators could explain how they found themselves searching Diddy's sleeping area and his personal effects. Apparently, according to the law, the targeted seizure of a pretrial detainee's work, aka product and privileged materials, aka Diddy stuff, created in preparation for trial is outrageous government conduct amounting to a substantive due process violation, according to Diddy's defense attorney. The investigators used this information they allegedly acquired illegally to file a 30-page memorandum to prevent Diddy from getting bail. Now, what the investigators found was pretty damaging to Diddy's appeal process. Allegedly, in a shocking twist, the investigators found that Diddy might still pose a threat to his victims. According to reports, he's allegedly been reaching out to both victims and witnesses involved in his cases, trying to influence them in his favor.
Good morning to you, Rebecca. Sean Combs is accusing federal prosecutors of violating his constitutional rights by leafing through his handwritten jailhouse notes, calling it outrageous government conduct amounting to a substantive due process violation. The Fed seized those notes in a recent raid, and prosecutors used them to claim Combs was actively continuing to obstruct justice while in custody.
Now, because of the manner that the investigators got their hands on this damning evidence against Diddy, the judge ruled that the prosecutors had to destroy all the copies of Diddy's handwritten notes that they obtained during their illegal search. Y'all, the judge further warned the prosecutors from bringing up any information they found on the notes, as he considers whether those notes were subject to attorney-client privilege. However, the judge himself was left with copies of the notes, and a separate team within the U.S. Attorney's Office that is responsible for screening documents for attorney-client privilege was also given copies to analyze. Now, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, Diddy's cell search was part of a larger safety and security initiative that was scheduled before Diddy was even arrested. According to prosecutors, a Bureau of Prisons investigator searched Diddy's cell and found a manila folder marked legal, a notebook, an address book, and personal effects. The investigator took photographs of the notebook and address book and submitted them to a filter team, which approved making some photos available to prosecutors. But the government said these photos, which showed Diddy's wide-ranging notes to himself, including notes related to his business interests, his release of music, and family matters, among other things, are not considered privileged materials in his legal defense. Now, among those letters is where they reportedly found Diddy wrote about paying off potential witnesses and digging up dirt on them. According to the prosecutors, that could amount to obstruction of justice, meaning attorney-client privilege should not apply. Now, because of this, if the judge does find that those letters don't fall under privileged information, Diddy could be facing additional charges on top of the one he currently has. I mean, it seems that there is no length that Diddy is willing to go to get his way, whether it is hosting alleged mini freak-offs in prison, to trying to get witnesses in his cases to drop the cases against him. I think this dude truly believes he is like a god or something who can get his way if he wants to. But what do y'all think about this whole mess? Is there a way to really end Diddy's reign of terror? Let me know your opinions in the comments. Till next time, bye.